Hi everyone, welcome to another video. Today I want to share with you how to create a liquid shaker card. Now for today's video, I'm going to be using some Joy Claire stamps. The one on the left is called Coffee Talk. I have used this before. It is an adorable stamp set. I'll link that video in the top right hand corner. I'm also going to be using the brick background from Joy Claire. Now I love these backgrounds from Joy Claire stamps. They are clear stamps. So if you're wondering how to stamp them, the best way that I have found is to actually just leave them on the backing sheet. Take the clear protective cover off, ink it up with your favorite ink. I'm using VersaFine Clear Nocturne ink because it's a nice crisp clear ink and I know it's going to give me the best image the first time I stamp it. So then I take my cardstock that I'm using and then I'm just going to place it right down onto my background, put a piece of computer paper over it, and then rub over the top. I'm using a brayer here so I get nice even pressure. If you don't have a brayer, use your hands. If you don't want to use your hands or you can't get that pressure with your hands, take an acrylic black and just rub over the back of that. You can use anything flat to give you that little bit of extra pressure. I'm going to go ahead and finish up here. I did want to show you can rub this with an acrylic black. It works just the same as a brayer. And then I'm just going to go ahead and remove that cardstock. And there I've got this gorgeous background stamp ready to go. Now I'm going to set that off to the side to dry for a little bit because VersaFine Clear is a pigment ink. It takes a little bit of time to dry, or you can give it some heat. I would suggest doing that too as well before you start ink blending like I'm going to do over it. But I wanted to go ahead and stamp out my little cup. I'm stamping this on a piece of scrap paper, and again I'm using VersaFine Clear Nocturne ink. I'm just going to give it a good press down onto my cardstock. I like to give it a few seconds to soak into the paper. And there I've got my cup all ready to go as well. Again, I'm going to set that aside to dry. And I also went ahead and took a circle die. This is going to fit behind my coffee cup. So I made sure that it was larger than my little opening in the coffee cup. And I'm adding some ink to this. I'm using Catherine Pooler icing on the cake. You can use whatever brown ink. I'm going to be putting water droplets on this to make it look a little bit more liquidy. So if you want that look, use a distress ink, use one of these, use something that reacts with water. You can also just use watercolors if you want to. So I'm going to go ahead and blend this on very, very darkly. Then I'll come in with a little bit of water and just give it a little squirt right over there. And I put some water droplets on there. I'll go ahead and let those sit for a few seconds and then mop them up with a paper towel. I didn't get it on that other side. It was just basically one side, so I added some more. Let those sit for a few more seconds, and then I can go ahead and mop those up with my paper towel as well. I just go ahead and place my paper towel down, give it a good rub so I'm not rubbing the water all around there, and just kind of blot it up. There you can see that gorgeous little reaction you get with the water with those inks. Now for my background, I'm actually going to be doing some distress ink blending. I've got 3 different colors I'll be using. I'm using aged mahogany, fossilized amber, and peeled paint. Now, I went ahead and heat set this as well just to make sure the ink is nice and dry, especially using this lighter yellow. If you get any sort of ink smearing, you're really going to see it with that yellow. So I went ahead and gave it a good heat set, and then it was time to start blending. I'm starting with aged mahogany and fossilized amber. I get those colors down where I want them, and I blend in between the 2 of those. Then I leave a little bit of space to come in and add some peeled paint. Now at this point I'm blending between fossilized amber and peeled paint. If you have 3 ink blending tools or however many colors you have going on, you don't need to do this. I just have 2. I don't have a lot of space in my craft room, so I try to cut down on supplies as much as possible. So I just switch back and forth between 2 colors until I'm happy with the blend. And then I go and switch in between 2 more colors until I'm happy with the blend, if that makes sense. So right now I'm going between peeled paint and the aged mahogany. And once I was happy with that, this background is ready to get that same water treatment that my little circle got. So I added some water droplets. Distress ink react with water just like the Catherine Pooler inks do. So I went ahead and mopped up that water, gave it a little blot. I did let the water sit for about 20 seconds. It doesn't take long. And then you can blot it up and you get this great kind of bleached out background. It's just really a gorgeous effect. Now, before it's time to make the actual shaker cart, I needed to go ahead and cut out the center of my coffee cup. The easiest way I found to do that was to take a circle die, cut out the center, and then use my scissors to cut the rest of it away. That was just easiest for me. I didn't get any bends in my cardstock that way. I would suggest doing it that way as well. I also cut a white strip of cardstock that goes all the way across the cardstock and a piece of craft cardstock that goes all the way as well. I placed my coffee cup on top of the white panel, drew a little, used my pencil to draw around where the coffee inside is, put my die down on top of that, the same one I used to cut my circle out in the beginning, and then I just position that over each one of the layers that I have going on here. So I did the white panel, I did the craft panel, and finally I'm going to go ahead and do my panel that I did my distress ink blending on. Now I've got everything ready to go. I've got all my holes cut out. I've got my little background ready to go. So now it's time to fill the shaker part. I wanted to use liquid. I didn't want to use straight water though, because it would leak too easily. So if you got any little hole or anything, it's going to immediately start to come out. It was just too liquidy. So what I decided to do was actually use some hair gel. This can be thinned down as much as you want, so you can add a little bit of water to this and thin it down, which I'll do later on, but you can also color this. So I'm just using a clear hair gel. This is kind of a thicker one, and I'll go ahead and put it into one of these little jewelry bags. You can get these from your local craft store. If you don't have these, just use a Ziploc bag and kind of fold it down, and I'll show you how to do that once it's done. Alright, to color this in, you can use whatever you have on hand. I'm using the Dr. P.H. Martin, the Hydrus watercolors. These are just in little droppers, so it was the easiest thing I had on hand. If you don't have these, use a re-inker. If you don't have that, you could try another liquid watercolor that you have on hand. Just try different things. Give it a little test out. See if it works for you. If you have nothing and you just have ink pads, you could always go in and smush your ink pad down on a palette, add your gel, mix it up with a palette knife or a credit card, and then transfer it to your bag. This was just the least messy way for me to do it because I'm a mess when I craft. So this was the easiest way for me to do it. I mixed up the watercolor with the hair gel just by closing the bag and smushing it around, and it was still a little bit too thick for me even with that added watercolor. So I took my spray bottle and just sprayed in squirts of it, mixed it around until I was happy with the consistency. I didn't want it extremely runny, but I wanted it to have a little bit of a run to it rather than being so incredibly jelly. Now, once I was happy with that, it was time to start sealing this bag up. So I used my bone folder, smushed all my liquid down to the bottom, and this is where you could really use Ziploc bags if you want those, and just continue to fold it down until you have a smaller bag. You don't need as small of a bag as this. This was just a little bit handier for me to use. So I am using double-sided adhesive, and I am folding this bag down just to give it a little bit more of a seal to it, so that way if it does open up a little bit, I've still got a few folds in there that the liquid needs to go through before it starts falling out all over the place. There's my little pouch all ready to go, and now it's time to start putting this all together. So I've got my little panel here that is my distress ink panel, which is going to be my very back panel, but it's where I'm going to place my bag. Now I placed my little smusher here first, but what I would really suggest doing is actually placing the backer that we made, that first little circle. I would place that down first because I had to go a roundabout way, kind of place it down through there, and then move the liquid out of the way to make sure it was in the right spot, then flip it over onto my card base and put it down that way. It is bigger than the hole in my cup, so it's not going to show if it's a little off, but just go ahead and put this down first. Then you can put your bag right down with the same double-sided adhesive. That little piece there is just in case the liquid kind of goes over to whatever side. you've still got that little piece back there, so it still looks brown behind there. It's going to give it a more complete look rather than just a white cardstock background. Now, because this bag is so thick, I did a double layer of foam adhesive on the back of this just to give it even more of a push up from the card base, so it's got all kinds of room for that liquid to move around behind there. Then I put this down onto my card base. I'm using an A2 side folding card base for this, and it's a white card base as well. So I went ahead and put down that, and there is my little shaker ready to go. You can smush it, you can move around that liquid inside. If it sits up on its side, it runs all to the bottom. If it goes to the side, it goes to the side as well. It really is a little fun card and something different. So it was time to start putting everything else together. I took that same Coffee Talk stamp set. I used the All You Need sentiment. I wanted to finish that off on the inside of the card though, so I added just 3 little dots to All You Need Is, and just the 3 little dots, and then I'll finish off the sentiment on the inside. I placed down my craft panel with double-sided adhesive. Then for my 2 little white pieces, since it's 2 pieces that got cut apart, I went ahead and used some liquid adhesive, so I had a little bit of playtime putting these down so I could get the position just right. And then I just placed an acrylic block on top of those to hold them in place while they dry. The final little piece to this shaker is my coffee cup. I colored my coffee cup in with some chalk inks, and very quick and easy to do. You can just add a little hairspray to those before you put them down. That way the chalk doesn't smear. That's your little sealant. Then I placed my acrylic block on top, and this shaker card was ready to go once it was all dry. You can see that liquid in there moving around. Like I said, if it sits up like you're propping it up to show it, the liquid moves around. There's a closer look at it. You can see the bubbles in there. It's just a really cool little addition to my card. Now it's time to move on to the inside. Like I said, I wanted to finish off the inside of this card with the sentiment. So the outside says, all you need is ... And then I put coffee because crack is bad for you. Let's get together. So I built up 2 different sentiments in that Coffee Talk stamp set and placed them on the inside of my card. I used the same VersaFine Clear ink, and then I wanted to add a little bit something more, but I didn't want to overshadow that sentiment. So I did second generation stamping, inked up my little coffee cup with my VersaFine Clear ink, stamped that off onto a piece of scrap paper, and then I stamped right over my sentiment with that second generation inking, which is going to give me a lighter color. So there you can see it's kind of muted in the background. It's just a really fun little way to finish off your card on the inside, and very easy. I did the same thing with the center of this cup with icing on the cake, which I used on the outside as well. Just stamped it off, then stamped right inside that little cup to do my second generation and finish off my little cup on the inside of the card. This was such a fun card to make. It was a little bit of a challenge, I have to say, trying to figure out all the pieces and how to keep that liquid in there, what liquid to use. It was a challenge, but it was so much fun. And I hope you guys will give this technique a try. It really is just a cool little addition. And something different from your normal shaker cards, which are your sequins and your glitter and that kind of thing. So this was different. It was fun. There's a closer look at the inside of the card as well after I dropped the whole thing. But that is going to do it for me today. I want to finish this video off with a few more close-up pictures just of the background and of the whole card as well. That is going to do it for me today. As always, there's links on the left side of your screen you can click on. You can also subscribe to my channel over there if you like this video. Give it a thumbs up down below. I always appreciate it. Links are going to be in the description box for all the supplies I used. Happy crafting!